Tabletop enthusiasts, weary travelers and adventurers, welcome to the introductory video to a brand new tabletop RPG called Realms of the Shattered, or ROTS for short. I am Joseph, a long-time tabletop GM and author of the game. With me is my good friend Emmerich, our class designer.
The idea behind this video is to introduce some of the game's core concepts to you and hopefully interest you into giving it a look in the future. So without further ado, let's just jump into the first thing you would encounter as a new player, character creation. The philosophy behind our character creation process, much like the philosophy behind the game as a whole, is to reduce the unnecessarily huge factor of luck usually present in tabletop RPGs and replace it with a proportional factor of choice.
Yes, because of this, when a player creates a new character in Realms of the Shattered, he doesn't roll any dice. Instead, he distributes a limited pool of points amongst his abilities. This way, a created character lives and dies by the player's choices, and not by the fickle rolls of dice. Well, for the most part, that is.
The second choice you will have when creating your character is selecting its race, background, and class. Your character's race, which is fairly self-explanatory, determines certain racial features, both beneficial and debilitating. Your character's background, which essentially explains who your character was before he started adventuring, determines your starting equipment, motives, traits, ideals, and quirks, as well as skills which your character might be competent in. And finally, your character's class, by far and away the most important choice you will make when creating your character, determines the various abilities and features you will use both in combat and outside it.
And now, we get to the nitty-gritty part of the video. What separates our game from the rest of the currently available tabletop RPGs? You see, the goal of ROTS is to create a more realistic, low-fantasy game that rewards players for clever positioning and the skillful usage of the rather limited features available to each character. This philosophy transfers to the game mechanics themselves.
One of the core tenets of this philosophy is the simplification of otherwise unnecessarily convoluted rules while still maintaining the strategic complexity usually present in these types of games. One of the ways this manifests itself in the mechanics is through the significant reduction of each individual creature's hit points.
Yes, while in other tabletop RPGs, a creature's hit points may reach way above the hundreds on certain character levels, in Realms of the Shattered, creatures have precious few hit points, with only the most rare and legendary of them ever reaching double-digit HP. What is more important, hit points do not increase with gained character levels. Those sword cuts and thrusts are always dangerous, no matter your level. Instead, in Realms of the Shattered, creatures have 3 ratings that serve as their primary layers of defense: Miss, Toughness, and Protection. A creature's Miss rating is determined by its agility and awareness, and represents its ability to dodge incoming blows. The higher a creature's Miss rating, the harder it is for it to be hit in combat. Should a creature suffer a blow, it rolls a protection save based on its protection rating. Should a hit creature fail the save, then the attacker rolls its damage roll. If the roll is higher than the creature's toughness rating, it suffers a wound, losing 1 hit point. If the damage roll is lower than the creature's toughness rating, the creature sustains a blow, but the damage received is not enough to seriously harm the hit creature. The creature's hit points remain unchanged. Keep in mind that equipped armor affects these layers of defense. As a result, each given character will only be able to focus on 1 or maybe 2 of these layers at the expense of the others. For instance, if a creature's Miss rating is high, then its toughness and protection rating will most likely be low. This very trade-off is one you yourself will have to make when creating and playing a character.
Another key innovation in ROTS is the way it integrates role-playing with combat mechanics. The main way this is done is through the game's sanity system. Each character is assigned a number of sanity points according to its abilities. As the game progresses, your characters will periodically lose sanity points as they come into contact with forbidden lore, stress-inducing situations, and nightmarish creatures. Should a character lose all its sanity points, it may become broken, receiving a significant debilitating effect until it regains at least one sanity point. Bear in mind that the only way to restore sanity points is by engaging in resting activities, something your character can only do within the safety of civilization. Resting activities in ROTS are numerous, and which ones you engage in is completely up to your preference, and, well, their availability depending on your location. This means that in order to successfully recuperate and be ready for the next round of combat, you will be strongly encouraged to roleplay.
Yes, while roleplaying and partaking in resting activities, you might receive a Destiny token. These may be used to reroll certain failed attacks, saves and checks, something that is instrumental to your party's success in the ruthless combat of ROTS. And so, the connection between combat and role-playing comes to a full circle.
This brings us to the third and final part of our video, the combat mechanics themselves. In ROTS, combat is separated into rounds, which are then divided into turns. Each turn is then divided into two phases, the movement and the act phase.
Yes, in the movement phase, as the name would imply it, creatures move around the battlefield. Once every creature of a side has finished their movement, the phase ends and the act phase begins. Once the act phase has begun, creatures may no longer move until the beginning of their next turn.
The act phase, on the other hand, allows the creature to do so much more, from casting magic to attacking with melee and ranged weapons to taking various other actions that may lead to their side gaining the upper hand in combat. Once the act phase is over, the turn is over and the opposing side's turn begins. Once both sides have taken their turns, the round is over and another round begins.
Another important and unique feature that plays a large part in making combat in ROTS much quicker and easier to track is the introduction of the various types of tokens. There are 4 types of tokens used in ROTS, each with their own function. HP tokens are used by the adventurers to ease the tracking of their, well, hit points. Sanity tokens, in turn, are used to track an adventurer's sanity points. Wound tokens are mainly used by the GM to track the missing hit points of creatures opposing the adventurers. Finally, there are several types of condition tokens, each representing a specific condition, a debilitating effect, that may be applied to creatures.
And with that, we have come to the conclusion of this introductory video. If you wish to learn more about ROTS, stay tuned for more in the future. The next piece of content we're looking forward to publishing will be a combat video that should showcase these mechanics in action.
For further information, check our webpage. And what would a YouTube video be without the most famous closing words? Like and subscribe.
Don't forget the smile, Joseph.
Yeah. Godspeed, adventurers.